And welcome to tonight's event as we celebrate Botswana's 49th anniversary of independence. My name is Popudi Somosinki and I'll be the Director of Ceremonies. Shall we now rise on our feet for the national anthem of the Kingdom of Belgium? We will remain standing for the national anthem of Botswana. Please take your seats. I would now like to invite the host, the Ambassador of Botswana, His Excellency Mr. Samuel Udlule, to come and say a few remarks. Your Excellency, sir.
Thank you very much, Director of Ceremonies. Your Excellency, the Chairperson of the ACP Committee of Ambassadors, Ambassador Mbeo Mahase Muilwa, Your Excellency the Dean, Ambassador Hanno Rumpf, Your Excellency Secretary General Dr. Pierre Gomes, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, thank you very much. I rise to express our deep gratitude on behalf of the government, the people of Botswana, the staff of the Embassy of Botswana in Belgium and delegation to the European Union, to thank you for having come here this evening to join us on this important occasion of the 49th anniversary of the independence of Botswana. This is an occasion that we treasure very deeply, and we therefore appreciate very much that you set aside some time to join us. We know that you are very busy. It's a midweek today, and you have other pressing engagements. But we are delighted that you have set aside some time to be with us. And therefore, I do not wish to make a statement because there is a show business tonight. And I think the show business would be saying something that I should be saying to you. And therefore, let me not take much of your time, except just to simply once again say thank you, thank you, thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Before I usher the award-winning actor, playwright, Mr. Donald Mulusi to the stage, I would like to share a little bit of his background with you. Mr. Mulusi remains the youngest recipient of the Sasaraza and Lady Ruth Khama Brilliant Spirit Award in 2003, the highest that the President gives to an artist. He is the first Botswana to perform on Broadway in 2008. The first time he performed Blue, Black and White was also in 2008 at Dialogue One Festival, and it won the Best Actor Award. In 2009, it won the Sanford Prize for Excellence in Theatre. In 2011, it won Best Solo of Broadway. In 2012, it won the Robert Potter Playwriting Award in the United States. And this enabled him to write a 2-hour-long ensembled version of the solo. And this is where you see both families from Sasaraza Khama's side and from Lady Ruth's side. In 2013, it won the Dealing Young Prize for Excellence in Playwriting. After that, he toured it in 3 different continents, being North America, Asia, and South America. Blue, Black and White is coming out as a book in 2016, just in time for Botswana's 50th anniversary of independence. Tonight actually is the last time he will perform it before it is published as a book. Mr. Mulusi has performed his one-man shows in front of the former SG of the UN, Mr. Kofi Annan, former President Bill Clinton, and the late President, Mr. Nelson Mandela. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Donald Mulusi.
I begin with a folk tale about a boy who brought his father back from the dead. It is said that there was once a boy who lived far away from his father's puta, his father's dwelling place. And his father had died before the boy was born, so the boy did not know his father. But as he was getting older, he became more and more curious about his father. And one day he asked his mother, "Mother, where is my father?" And his mother said, "My son, your father is dead. And when he was alive, his name was Mweti." So as time went by, the boy became more and more curious about his father. He wondered for days, for weeks, for months, until one day, he decided to set his donkeys to the cart and go to the place that has been his father's puta. On the way, he met an old woman, and he asked her, "How do I get to his puta?" And the old woman said, "Go straight, turn left, ask the people that you find there." So the boy set on his journey, and on the way, he found an old man, and he asked him, how do I get to where this kota? The old man said, continue on this gravel road. And there is the kota that you want, right there. And so the boy arrived at the kota. When he got there, he told the people of the kota, kill 2 oxen for me and 2 sheep for me, and go and show me where my father was buried. And so the people of the kota took him to his father's burial place. When he got there, he dug up his father's bones and assembled them to make a body. When he was done, he took the meat of the oxen and the meat of the sheep and fastened it to the bones of his father. In the same way, he asked for his father's shirt and put it on the meat of the oxen and the sheep that were attached to his father's bones. He asked for his father's trousers and put them on the meat of the oxen and the sheep that were attached to his father's bones. And in the same way, he took his father's shoes and put them on the meat of the oxen and the sheep that were attached to his father's bones. When he was done, his father indeed came to life. And then he set off for that land far away. And this time when he arrived, the people treated him like a king because he had his father to protect him. My dear Sonny, sending you this telegram hoping you arrive safely in England. Stop. Everything well in Siruwe. Your uncle and father take it calm. Dear uncle, arrived well in England. Stop. Settling well in England. Not enjoying courses in Greek and Latin. Stop. Changing degree to law. Stop. Your son, Serete. Dear son, congratulations on settling well. Stop. May my brother's spirit protect you, his beloved son. Stop. Law is good choice for future leader. Stop. Your uncle and father take it calm. Dear uncle, thank you for sending my allowances early. Stop. Happy to write with good news. Stop. Her name is Ruth Williams. Your son and nephew, Serete. Dear son, suspending your allowances at once. Stop. Welfare of tribe most paramount. Stop. You are to become chief of Bangladesh. Stop. Tribe cannot accept this. Formal signing of documents in England does not constitute your marriage. As far as we are concerned, no marriage exists. Repeat, formal signing of documents does not constitute your marriage. Your father and uncle, take it. Dear uncle, dissolution unacceptable. Stop. Ready to return with wife. Stop. Suspension of allowances being felt. I pay 4 guineas weekly for my flat. Your son, Serete. Dear son, allowances set. Stop. Airfare to Botswana. Stop. For 1 passenger. Stop. I can only discuss your proposal personally after your arrival here. Your father, take it calm. Benna ke seretse ngwana ka sekgoma. Yo ikileng a bele khosi ya rona ba ngwato. Ke ntse ke le kwa moseja ke ile go ithuta. Mme ke bona gore thuto e kgolo ke le ta ithutang hano tsatsing jeno. Bagolo bana maikaelelo a me ga se go golola tou le maboko. In a nutshell, I will continue to put on hold my duties as chief of our Bamato tribe while I lead the whole country towards independence. As the future first president of Botswana, I think we ought to give thought to having a good flag. So I am here to tell you my opinions as far as this matter of the flag is concerned. The colors that I was thinking, I am not bitter, but I'm frustrated because I'm compelled to lead my people towards independence from abroad. Rangwan, I have still not been able to find out what I have done wrong. I have been told that my marriage is contrary to native custom, but I can prove that it is not. Kajal, ke kopa gore le mo amogele ka mabogo o mabedi. Bagolo ba me ke a itse. All I ask is that you accept her as my wife, as part of our royal family. I realize I did not consult you about the engagement. Yes. What does that mean, my elders? Rangwan, how will my divorce guarantee that we will get independence from the British? What would the people, what would the Vanuatu have me do? It has been said that I'm a coward. That I ought to say outright I do not want the chieftainship. That my heart is not with you or with this country. But I cannot say that. It is not in my thoughts and it is not so. I cannot say that just so that you will think that I'm a man. You are angry with me because I will not leave my wife. A woman that you do not want. I cannot force you to accept her. I have already admitted I took her against your will. But you tell me that because of her, I cannot be your chief. You have the power to do that. If the power had been mine, she would already be here. I love my country and my people. And I have told you that even though there is this disagreement, I still want to be your chief. But you say that because of her, I cannot be your chief. Were I to part from her today, become chief, and take her up again tomorrow, you would not then tell me that I must leave the tribe. Then I would be on the throne and I could do as I pleased. But I have not cheated you. I have given you this chance to rule me. You all say you do not want the woman. You do not want the woman. I have told you before. I will tell you again. I cannot leave her. I cannot leave her. I cannot. Setso sa rona ke a se itse. Mme ha ile gore re ka tshwarelela mo go sone re sa le diemo. Ga ke bone mosola. Le tsere tshotso ya lona. You want to banish me. Well, it is not as if you would allow Ruth to come here, and I'm not going to live here without her. I will be leaving tomorrow to go back to England. And I will do what I need to do for my country from England. Rangwan, have I not suffered enough? Am I not a man that I can feel pain? Have I not known the toil of being spied on by the intelligence when I was just a student? The very thought of waking up to read these lies, these newspapers, these abominations that try to stir up scandal in my life and separate me from my wife? Am I not a man? Do I not suffer? Rangwane, ha ke taha pele ga gago, o se ka wa nkalola. The Rhodesians have called my marriage an unfortunate marriage. The South Africans have banned me and my wife from South Africa because the Prime Minister says he cannot have an interracial couple ruling just across their northern border. Pele ga gago ha ke tarang le thekedi, o se ka wa nkalola. We cannot fight amongst ourselves. Our enemies are at work. Bagolo bana, lekgotla le lehane, our future flag. On a blue background representing water, the lifeblood of our desert nation. A large black stripe represents Botswana's black majority. Two smaller white stripes represent the white citizens and the neighbors with whom we want to live in harmony. Now, how many of you approve of my marriage? As Botswana, we vote for our leaders. And as the leaders of Botswana, we realize that we are the servants of the people. Reba rongwa ba batho, reba thanka, ga re dikgosi. Maemo a re eme mo gone a re eme mo gone ka keletso ya batho. Ha ba gopola gore re dihata, re ja bobe. Ke tshwanelo ya bone gore ba re ntshe. Ha ba gopola gore boeteledipele jo ba bo tlhophileng ke jadilele. Ke tshwanelo ya bone gore ba ntshe boeteledipele jo. We were taught, sometimes in a very positive way, to despise ourselves and our ways of life. We were made to believe that we had no past to speak of, no history to boast about. So, it should now be our intention to retrieve what we can of our past. We must be like that boy in the folk tale. We must tie the present to the past, because the past can disappear. And a nation without a past is a lost nation, and a people without a past is a people without a soul. Bagaetsho ke maitumelo a magolo gore ke bo ke le bona jana le kokwani re kopane gape. Nna ke ha Vice President Dr. Masire o bua gore re tsamaile ra ba ra tsena go sekweleng se se tona sa Princeton. Ba hita ba nka pesa dipurapura tse di phatsimang. Ene ha bua a re ke ne ke apeswa dipurapura tse ka ke le senata ke me nna ka re ba ne ba batla go re apesa rothe batho ba Botswana jaaka re le 700,000 dia. Ke se go fetse fela ka gore ke nna ke thophilweng go etelela setšhaba se pele. Jaanong ba gaetsho, our coat of arms The head of the bull needs no explanation. Cattle were the mainstay of Bechuanaland's economy, and they will continue to be important in the Republic of Botswana's economy. Also in our coat of arms, we have the two zebras to represent our fauna and our flora. Now, we chose the zebra specifically because it is not the totem of any group of people in Botswana. And therefore, no preference is accorded any section of the population before the law. Also, the zebra is black and white. And that represents the uniracial character of the society that we want to build in the new Republic of Botswana. There was a time when I felt resentful about my exile. But I never blamed the British people. I blamed the British government at the time. And I know that the British public supported me and Ruth in our marriage. So I don't see why, because of that treatment at that time, I should jeopardize the interests of my country simply because of personal resentment, which I no longer have anyhow. Anyway, I am told that the Swedish Democratic Party has sent us a letter of congratulations. Vice President Dr. Masire says he forgot the letter in a jacket that he's not wearing today. I am just impressed that Masire has more than one jacket. It has been suggested many times to my office that the present government's party colors, red, black, and white, be adopted as the national colors. But I decided, in consultation with Dr. Masire and the legislative committees, that more neutral colors must be adopted as national colors. Blue, black, and white. Motsatsing jeno, Botswana o tsetswe. Ebile batho ba lehatshe leno ba tlile mo maemong a go godimo mo ditsong tsa bone. Go tswa ko dipaneng tsa makgadikgadi in the northeast of our country. Go tsena ka makgobokgobo ao ka Vango in the north. Go ralala lehatshe go eta ga etse serwe go ralala sekaka sa kgalakadi go tshwara ko tennyana teng. Batswana botlhe nelwang ke pula.
Batho beso, ke ikutlwa ke tlotegile ebile ke itumela mo go golo go bua le lona gompieno ke le motlotlomeledi wa ntlha wa boitsamaiso bo bo tletseng jwa Repaboliki ya Botswana. Mo tsatsing leno, Botswana o tsetswe. mme batho ba lefatshe leno
Today is the 49th anniversary of the independence of Botswana. We are celebrating this event today as part of the national countdown to the 50th anniversary of independence. What we are doing is to remind our friends and partners around the world that Botswana started from very humble beginnings, but it has been able to establish a free, democratic, and non-racial society and has achieved phenomenal progress in terms of socio-economic development. So we have developed institutions such as the legislation, the administrative procedures, the rule of law, the independence of the judiciary that makes it possible for any investor, for instance, to come and invest, be assured of a good return on their investment, but at the same time to be able to grow their businesses. And in doing so, we can create jobs for the people, create wealth, and prosper. And therefore, in that way, we can also sustain the achievement that have been made in other fields in the democratic process of the country. The 50th anniversary would be very, very important for the country to celebrate. The idea really is that it's a landmark. It's a half a century. We look forward to the next 50 years, to the centenary. But the importance of the 50th anniversary is in the fact that during these first 50 years, we are able to take stock of what we have achieved. We have the good fortune of having some of the founders who were there at independence. And therefore, given the foundation that has been set and the many milestones that we have achieved, we think it also offers the opportunity for young generations to look forward, to inherit the country as a going concern and to build on the achievements of the past 50 years.
Tonight I presented Blue, Black and White, which is my one-man show about Seseratsakama and the formation of the Republic of Botswana. I have been performing it for 8 years now. I've done it in 4 different continents, off-Broadway in New York and also in Botswana, but it's the first time that I bring it to Belgium, so I was very excited to do that. I'm very aware that my work is very revisionist in the history that it tells, so I wanted to offer it to Europe, to Belgium, to the Western world as a way that the African sees their own past, which I think sometimes differs from the official textbook past that was written by the colonial governments and so forth. I love solo performances because I get to really flesh out one character that the audience can have an intimate relationship with. In all my plays, I write the solo version, and then I have the ensemble version, which has more characters, and you see that character in the context of their relationships. But I think it's also nice to sometimes engage with just that one character, and that's what I've done tonight. I'm very excited that we have been independent for almost 5 decades, and that we've made great strides to make sure that everyone shares in that national identity. So for next year, I'm looking at taking this play to schools, to rural areas, out of the traditional theatre into more experimental spaces, so that our citizenry can also learn more about their own history and themselves, therefore.
Good evening once again, and allow me to say all protocol observed. And thank you very much, first of all, for coming to be part of the telling of this story and also its reception. And I'm very honored to be sitting next to Ambassador Utule. And before we start our conversation, I wanted to offer the copy of these books to the ambassador as a token of my appreciation. It's a picture book that tells the story of the play you just saw, and it's a prelude to the bigger book that will come out in 2016. So, Ambassador, if you could please accept. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And tonight, to start with, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the legacy of Seseratsakama from a young person's perspective, and then to converse with the ambassador about his generation's experience with his legacy. One of the things that struck me first when I started researching this story in 2007 was how our national university came to be, the University of Botswana. the Motole system, where the president, Sesiretse Khama, asked all the parents and adults to donate goats, chickens, cows, whatever they had, so that the community could secure the future of its children and their education. And obviously this was before I was born. So I wanted to sort of hear what the ambassador's experience was with that part of our history.
Thank you, Mr. Mulusi. Excellencies, distinguished guests. Well, at independence in '66, I was 9 years old. So in that sense, I had a very good recollection of what was happening around me, and I have a lot of good memories. One of the first things is that that's the year I went to school, at 9 years. You know that now you start at 3 years old. So I've witnessed the beginning of the political campaigns, and of course a number of things. For instance, the one man, one beast a donation to build the University of Botswana. I've also been a beneficiary of that because that's the university where I studied and graduated. And the other aspects that you have referred to with respect to how the process to independence came about, I've also had a sense of what was going on at the time from the discussions at home. And later on, of course, as the years went by, the opportunity to be able to see that the leadership was actually convinced of what they wanted to do. They were convinced Democrats, they were committed to it, and that is why, even in terms of decisions on the national flag or the national symbols, they would choose something to be very inclusive of the society of Botswana. And to even proceed in such a manner that to build a country based on meritocracy, such that it didn't matter where you came from, of any ethnic identity, that what matters was your ability. You would be judged on the basis of what you can do. And that has been the foundation on which the country was built.
And one of the things that the ambassador touched on is the idea of ethnic identity. And as I mentioned in the play, the Nation Project meant that the government at the time was asking people to identify as a nation and not just with their ethnic groups. And that's one thing that keeps coming back even in today. The symbolism that was there in the flag, now there's a rebirth of putting those symbols in everyday items. The shirt that I'm wearing now is designed by Banu Simbakanyi, who is a Botswana designer. And it's the first time that we are putting Sesiretse Khama's image on fabric. A lot of countries have done this, but we are only catching up. So it's designed in the style of the safari shirt that Sesiretse would have worn. And these are some of the shirts that will be all over the country next year as we mark the 50th anniversary. The second question that I had for the ambassador was about the natural resources of Botswana, being known for diamonds, and the diamonds being discovered around the time of independence, around the time of the university. And I just wanted to know more about what the reaction at the time was. Obviously with independence there was a lot of excitement, but I would just like to touch on that.
Thank you. You know, one of the things that made it possible to exploit the resources in a way that was inclusive of the people of Botswana, and even the way that the revenues were distributed, was that at the very beginning, even before the process of prospecting for minerals started, the leadership decided that there must be a dialogue with all the chiefs that constituted the now Republic of Botswana. The entities at that time, they were sovereign in the sense that any particular territory and a given chief had all the rights to minerals or wildlife and any other resource in that particular area. Then it was agreed, following the negotiations with the people, that all the resources in all these various territories should belong to the state, the new state of the Republic of Botswana, and they should be exploited for the benefit of all. So that if there were diamonds to be found, like it happened that they were found first in the area of Bechuanaland, that was called Gamangwatu, the place where the founder and first president came from. Those resources would be for the benefit of the entire nation. But not only that the resources or the revenue would not go into paying high salaries to civil servants. It has been possible to maintain wages at a level that makes it possible to distribute the resources amongst all the people by avoiding to pay high salaries, but instead putting the resources into education, health, infrastructure in the form of roads, telecommunications. And therefore, in that sense, the macroeconomic management of the economy was such that it was proceeding on the basis of being people-centered and being inclusive of a cross-section of society.
And this idea that you mentioned, Ambassador, of cross-section of society, I like to think of it as also as our first government looking at a cross-section of the world. When I look at the flag, and in the longer version of this play, which is 2 hours long with other actors, about 25 other people and dancers, I talk about how in 1966, when we became independent, we were the only country in the world that had a symbol of racial harmony in its emblem, national emblem. That to me almost, it's a more pan-human perspective, especially when I think that the trend at the time was for African countries to have yellow, red, and green, the Pan-African colors in their flags, and to choose to forego that and go for a greater cause, or at least that's how I interpret it. Is that an accurate assessment, Ambassador, or am I projecting my own fiction into it?
Yes, I think in many respects, yes, it's true that the flags generally have tended to reflect how countries perceived their own situation, both in terms of the struggle for liberation, the natural resources that they have, and maybe the people as well. And in a sense, maybe Botswana tended to look at its own situation in terms of the geography of the region of Southern Africa at the time. And therefore, there was a lot of emphasis on the aspects of building a non-racial democratic society. Because as you can imagine, at that time, it was considered more or less unthinkable that when you had Namibia, South Africa, and Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Angola, under colonial rule, and of course under apartheid, that you could imagine a small country, or at that time of about 500,000 people, claiming that they can be an independent and sovereign state, and in fact, without any resources to think of. But I think it was more the belief in the people of Botswana, the conviction and the commitment to say that it is possible for people to be able to build something that is good for humanity, and as long as they are focused on it and they are determined to do it. And indeed, I think that as the history has turned out, it has proved that to be true or to be correct.
Thank you, Ambassador. Mema Musinki. I believe now we will open it up for a more interactive session.
I have a question. I don't know a lot about the history of Botswana, but it's interesting. 1966, then you have the colonial wars at your frontier till 1974-5. Then the civil war in Angola, and then the fall of apartheid in 1991 or 1992. But what did you do to keep your, let's say, sovereignty, or was it pushed, or did you have also problems with all those political problems around you?
Well, thank you. Yes, I think that's an important question because, as I said, we were a small country at independence, about 500,000, without an army, without any resources. But I think the important thing was the humanity of our people and how we linked with the rest of the international community. Obviously, we had international support because we did not have any immediate long borders with majority-ruled African countries, except for the border with Zambia. But the fact that there were a number of other African countries and other developing countries that recognized that there are a people who are asserting their humanity, their independence, and saying that racist and oppressive regimes in the region were wrong and that they should come to an end and let the people of the region to be free. That, I think, was a very important and powerful factor. And I think morally, the isolation that was there with respect to those regimes was playing a very crucial role. But we also needed to be mindful of the fact that in our efforts to be independent, we should not attempt to commit suicide or to undertake actions that would in the process undermine the very independence that we seek for ourselves and for our brothers and sisters in both South Africa at the time, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Angola, and Mozambique. And that also meant that in terms of our diplomatic engagement, both with the regimes and the international community, we had to be able to put our case in terms that would be understood and appreciated. Because it was a big challenge, both philosophically in terms of how do you deal with a regime that denied its own people their humanity. And yet we had to depend on the trade routes from South Africa, on exports, on a number of things that we had to depend on them for our own survival. Our people were working in the mines, even though they were needed to work in those mines. So there were challenges, but it was perhaps how you went about addressing those challenges. And in some ways, I think there's always been that appreciation by the African Union and the wider international community that the countries in the region needed to be able to maintain some relations that would ensure that they can be able to survive and still continue to condemn the actions of those regimes. The ambassador of the Kingdom of Lesotho.
I'm just interested in taking you a little bit back before independence, because one time I asked a Botswana friend of mine, like, but who's the founder of the Botswana nation? And he said, it says Khama. And I was like, oh, but for me, the founder of Basotho nation is Moshweshwe I, and that was long before independence. So I'm just interested in knowing when did you start calling yourselves Botswana, and who are Botswana? What tribes or clans or whatever came together at what stage, and when did you start calling yourselves Botswana? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador. We started calling ourselves Botswana at independence in '66. I think even though we are cousins with Basotho, we have a number of historical, family, and blood ties. Perhaps the difference is that with respect to Lesotho, you were founded by King Moshweshwe. So therefore, at the very beginning, you were a kingdom that came under one king. Whereas in Botswana, you could say there were several kingdoms. There were several kingdoms in this big territory because actually, given the size of the country, some of the areas that would be considered to have been chiefdoms, in historical terms, they were actually kingdoms. The only difference was that since there was a king or queen in the United Kingdom, there could not have been other kings and queens in the territories that were under British protectorate or under British colonial rule. So therefore, I think even the idea of chieftainship was an imposition, which the people now have corrected. Of course, we tend to go carefully and steadily over time. But recently, or not so long ago, the laws were amended to refer to the chiefs, not as chiefs, not by the English name, chief, but to say Khosi, which does not have the substance and meaning, which is the same as chief. That Khosi is a much bigger concept in terms of our languages, and therefore that was the case. Now, when we became a republic, that was the beginning of nation building, of saying we should come together. There were, of course, some ethnic groups that belonged in terms of ethnic identity more or less together, but there were many others that would not consider themselves to be Tswana, of Tswana ethnic group. But even the very concept of saying we are Botswana began with an opposition, a political party which was a Pan-Africanist political party called Botswana People's Party, the first political party to be established. It is the political party that called itself Bechuanaland People's Party. And therefore, that was the beginning of the discussion about having a common concept of Botswananess, of having an idea that if we are a nation, we would be a nation of Botswana. And therefore, people relating to each other in that sense. But, otherwise, this is a work in progress. That is how we identify ourselves. But there is still the idea that the citizenship, one should be able to say, I'm a citizen of Botswana. But I may be Kalanga or Herero or Mbukushu or San, but I'm a citizen of Botswana. So if you choose to say I'm not Motswana because ethnically you are not of that stock, of Tswana stock. But as long as you identify yourself as a citizen of Botswana, that still is a unifying factor. But generally, I think it's a debate that is going on in a spirit of give and take, and without necessarily denying the existence of any groups of people that may not necessarily speak the same language.
And if I may just add a little bit to what the ambassador just said, that the term Motswana, actually, I have another play called Motswana, which investigates exactly what the ambassador is asking, where at independence, Tswana only describes some of the ethnic groups in that territory. The Bangwato, Bangwaketse, Bakwena. It's certainly not everyone. So the part of selling the nation project to the people was for them to accept that some of them may not be Tswana ethnically, but they identify as Tswana nationally. And that is part of the still ongoing project that the ambassador is alluding to, that you may be Kalanga ethnically, but then you are Tswana nationally. And of course, then that creates an interesting, it could be a discordant relationship. But fortunately, it's up to this point, it's been very smooth. And yes, so I just wanted to.
Mine is a comment, not so much a question to the ambassador. You will be glad I'm not asking any question. I just wanted to make a comment on our flag. I think I was actually talking to a colleague recently, a Belgian colleague, about our flag, about the colors. And to me, when I heard in the play about what the colors represent, which is something that we've always known as kids in primary school, I find it was present at the time. It spoke volumes at the time, being from a very semi-arid place, needing water, and the issue of our neighbors being racially segregated and us finding a way to unite the two. I find it very prophetic at the same time, because when you look at the situation right now, water, so many countries are experiencing water stress, and water is being deemed as the new oil. So it's more like we already knew this resource of its importance, and at the same time, you also have these racial incidents that have been going on, and with social media making information very accessible, it has caused so much tension and conflict and uproar. So it's the past, and it's also part of the discourse happening right now, that there is water as a resource. I mean, we have a problem at home with the stress of the water, but in the future, in 2020 to 2040, Netherlands will join us in that list. So it's not like there are too many casualties, and I find that it's a very powerful flag that needs to be shared and spoken about.
Yes, thank you, Andretta Chuma, for your comment. So next year, when we celebrate the 50th anniversary, come up with a poem on that one. Well, I think that brings us to the end of the question and answer session, and thank you very much for being such a great guests and friends, for being here, and we very much appreciate once again your coming to join us.